You can't just close the deal, friends. You have to harvest the momentum. Harvest is the phase in this business where you get to finally play Realtor. So I'm going to talk about how to close out strong, how to serve them well, and create referrals before the deal even closes. Because this isn't just about the transaction, friends. This is about creating client loyalty. This is about building long-term trust and stacking future business, even while the current deal is still alive, i.e. the harvest phase. Welcome back to another Re-Education Experience podcast. I'm your host, Darren Langille. Again, this podcast is for realtors who are ready to just stop winging it, you guys, and start building something real. That's why I put these tactical breakdowns for you, and then I supplement them with actual real-world guests that are doing things like this to show you how it all works together. So at this point, you guys have known we've been taking us through the series of the agent cycle of life, something I introduced way back in the 7 C's series. We have planted the seeds so far, right? We've nurtured the leads, and now it's time to finally harvest, but not the way most agents think. Now, the harvest is the art of the client experience and closing the deal. In this show, we're not going to dive into the tactics about how to best represent a buyer or how to deep into how to market a listing. There's so many layers to that. I wanted to overarching give you some of my real takeaways about the harvest phase and something every one of us can implement no matter where we're at, whether we're the top agent in our market or we're junior and we're just trying to figure out what the harvest phase truly means. So this isn't, friends, just because we're playing Realtor now. This isn't just about closing the deals. It's about how we show up during the deal that creates a few things. Raving fans, not just the result they hired you for. Too many agents, I find, are kind of coasting along in this stage because they're playing Realtor, but they go quiet on the journey towards closing day. Right, they play Realtor, they finally got it locked in, and they kind of settle in to the minutiae of the deal, and they stop acting and using opportunities that are in front of us to build and strengthen our business. So today I'm going to show you how the harvest phase becomes our greatest opportunity to create more conversations, more referrals, deeper trust with those that have hired us before the deal even finishes. So I hope this is valuable to you. Why I believe the harvest phase might be the most overlooked business leverage or lever that we have is this. Let's be honest. This is part where most agents relax into the day-to-day grind of supporting the client transaction, the contract written, the scheduled inspection, the going on a showing tour, all the minutia, the writing, the paperwork, those kind of things, right? We get them into contract, and then the listing goes live, right? All that heavy lifting in that marketing is kind of like how you feel like you're playing in the harvest. You book showings, you create the accepted offer. There's a lot of minutia. There's a lot of playing Realtor here of just going through the mechanics. But the mistake, I believe, is you think your job is mostly done because you got the result or you're about to get the result they hired you for. But really, I believe this is we're just at the beginning here, right? And let me show you what I mean with the story kind of outside of real estate. If we go back to Steve Jobs, and when he launched the original iPhone, he insisted on the iPhone itself being this really beautiful machine that we hadn't really seen before. But he insisted not just the beauty on the outside that we all kind of fall in love with Apple products, but he insisted on the beauty on the inside of the phone, the parts that no customers will ever see. It had to also be beautiful. It had to have a great aesthetic. For you to sleep well at night, the aesthetic, the quality has to be carried all the way through, is his thought. Because how something is built matters, even if the customer doesn't fully see it, right? So that's kind of where the harvest is for me. It's not the shiny part, right? It's not the marketing to get them to call you. It's not showing up with all these fancy videos to get them to DM, right? It's not those things. It's not the shiny part. It's the guts of the client experience, right? That's why I say it's the art of the client experience. And your clients, like the iPhone users, are forming opinions about your brand while you're still in that zone, in the minutia of the deal, in the harvest. They're still forming opinions and have opportunities to help us. So while most agents treat harvest kind of like cruise control and the mechanics of the deal, I believe we need to treat it more like Steve Jobs is saying, is treating it like the circuit board, which is the place where behind the scenes excellence and reputation starts for us. So how do we do this? What it really means to harvest to me as a realtor. So let's redefine this. Harvest to me, now they've hired us to do XYZ, buy a home, right? Sell a place, right? They've hired us. It's not just about the result for me. It's about the skill. And the skill here has two clear jobs. We have to, of course, do what they suggested, which is deliver a successful transaction, right? If we don't do that, we're not staying in business, okay? But we also have to create a happy client. Oops, I didn't write that. Happy client experience regardless of the outcome. Because we know they don't always work out as well as we wanted. Some listings don't sell, some buyers have to wait, and the price they get might be higher or lower based on the kind of like the hope they went into. So we need to create a happy experience regardless of the final outcome. And let me start off with the section I usually bring up later, which is the myth busting section. Myth number one about this is, if I just close the deal, the client's going to get happy. The client's going to be happy, right? If I just do what they hired me for, and I'm going to say hard wrong, right? I've seen agents deliver full price over market sales and still lose referrals because the client felt stressed, confused, and maybe even abandoned during that process. So if the deal closes, I'm going to get that client's going to be happy. Maybe not. Maybe myth number two. Once the offer is accepted, it's mostly on to the lawyers and to the mortgage brokers at this point, right? My job's done. No, right? Your leadership matters most here, because even though at this point in time, you might have done a lot of your heavy lifting, right? And it's gone from, this is a really cool idea, I'm buying a new house, I'm selling a big thing. But the moment the paper is inked, guess what happens? It gets incredibly important for them now. They have to physically figure out a real life change, but not just on paper and looking at shiny pictures and nice kitchens, right? This is now where it gets real. And this is where a lot of agents kind of go into ghost mode. So this is where they need us. This is that emotional middle where it's ramped up for them, but often signs for us, silence starts to breed. And then that's where you're not going to see phase two, which is you're not going to get those warm referrals during the transaction. Myth number three, friends, is referrals come just after the deal, right? No, most clients decide whether to refer you while the transaction's happening because they're in real estate mode full time, right? They haven't had to actually put the down payment down. They haven't had to go ahead and sign off on that $3,000 mortgage payment, right? It's based on how you made them feel, not just the final outcome, which sometimes gets tainted by that point. So that's one thing I want you to think about. One agent I coached shared that she had a seller who didn't get asking price. It took a long time to sell, but still during the transaction, because of where she took them, the emotional ride she had them on, she had 2 referrals during the process, before the closing, and it wasn't an ideal closing, right? It's because she loved on them every Monday with well-written reports and kept them updated, stayed calm, and when the offer fell through before it's finally sold, she kept them informed ahead of those little questions. And that's why it came. They said, you were the one constant in the chaos. That's a pretty powerful statement, isn't it? That's the harvest. That's how we earn loyalty before we get to that final finish line. So think about those 3 myths and which ones you need to bust in your own mind. Because the harvest is both buyers, you guys, and sellers. Again, you could imagine how big this episode could be, but I wanted to just drop in a few things for the buyer side for you guys to think about, and then we'll dive into the seller side. So let's get kind of a little bit tactical on the buyer side to create that experience that I think all of us need to make sure. I want us to, no matter how long we've been in this business, how seasoned your client is, it's still, life changes. People forget. And the process adjusts every time somebody buys and sells. So I don't want you guys to miss the buyer's consult. I want you guys to have that process, right? Every seasoned buyer needs new orientation into what's going to happen, and they want you to lead, or else they just see you as what? An open door person or a taxi cab driver, right? Every seasoned buyer needs some consult, and you need to find it within you to walk them through that journey, right? This will build trust, and it'll create that kind of a knowledge broker status and preempts any future confusion. So what we need to teach them is not that every house is going to make sense, not that every listing you send them is going to be perfect, that some of the things that you've sent will miss the mark, and not to be upset, because we can adjust as we go. This is a fluid thing, right? This is something I think a lot of people get frustrated with, because if we don't preemptively tell them that there's going to be things showing up in your inbox and your searches where I've missed the mark. I also want you to tell them on the flip side that there's going to be things you say no to, where the client sends you a search result and you dive into based on what you know, whether it's communities, style, what they've told you in the past, and you have the guts to say that's not a house for you, that's not a condo for you, we've missed something, and to be able to tell them no, right? That is very important for them to understand, right? You're filtering to protect their time. The more time you spend with them, you might filter more and more, and just the act of showing more houses to you in person is not the metric for which we create success. All right. I personally had a metric where the number of homes sold showed to buyer clients sold, the ratio was incredibly low. It was under 10, because I dove deep, I filtered hard, and I didn't waste these people's time, right? I also want them to know that the market dynamics happening matter more than the list price. So this is where you bring your education to the mix, that you understand the dynamics of the market, that if the list price is the list price, that the market dynamics and your coaching towards the final outcome and the price matters more than just that initial list price. And that's a conversation for which you're going to bring to the table, because you know that the context of certain communities, what price points are trading, etc., etc. I also want you to talk them through to say, I want them to know how you like to send them properties. I want you to guide the way for which they would send you back inquiries, right? So some people will easily will go on to Realtor.com or Zillow and they'll send links back to you. And that's frustrating for you, because you got to go find the MLS number, you got to put it into your system and do it. But if you have a way for which you want them to send you options to review, this is our chance to guide them. And guide them not because it's just your way or the highway, it's guide them with how you want to operate this business, because buyer representation can be chaotic. And why not lead them to the path that makes the most sense for you, right? I think you want to think of yourselves as a hiking guide, right? You don't just walk beside them, right? You're not just like the donkey carrying your stuff. You lead the route, right? You point it out, you share the hazards, and you explain what it is and why we took certain routes, right? And that would be like school systems and crime rates and market dynamics and all those things, right? One of the things I always do, I didn't call it this until a friend shared that it was a market education tour. And what they allow is that first tour you take with them, you let them go and see the 5 or 6 different houses that they've just picked, and you don't filter anything. You just go into it. You don't filter nothing. And you say, this is my education tour, both to learn how you guys work together, husband, wife, right? Or the things you point in and ask, so that when I come back and as we're starting to filter these and I'm protecting your time and I'm searching through the archives to find what works for you, that in this market education tour, I've learned all the things, how you operate, so that I can help you. And then you learn the things that I'm searching for and pointing out that is separate from the shiny thing, the shiny kitchen, the beautiful backyard, right? This market tour kind of like sets the stage, lowers the pressure, and sets the context before emotions take over when they're starting to get ready to pull the trigger. All right, you guys. So think about that buyer consultation. Think about this concept of leading that way. Think about being the hiking guide, not just the donkey walking alongside of them. And let's see what you can do to adjust in your business. All right. Now let's talk about for sellers. Sellers is a little different, right? The harvest means over communication, not overselling and over pushing. Because I know realtors get that thing to say, I need to push them towards my price, right? You've taken the listing on, but harvest agents that provide experience and get referrals along the journey have this ability to kind of over communicate ahead of the questions, and we don't end up just feeling like that we're that pitchy agent. So a couple ways for which you can do this now that you're in the harvest and they've chosen you is to keep them up to date, like I told you. And Derek on episode 99 talked about this, but every top agent has a weekly sellers report. And the weekly sellers report will have a variety of different things based on the MLS and the different ways you market. But every Monday for me was including stats, recent changes, showing feedback, market changes, new listings, new competitions, things that have sold, and then my personal interpretation of what's going on the listing. If you tell them ahead of time every Monday that no matter what happens throughout the week, I'm going to consolidate everything for you because I know it's overwhelming and you feel like you're sitting on your hands just hoping and praying that someone's going to offer you your price. Every Monday, I'm going to provide you this report to give you full context. And then if you have any other questions, let's go ahead and communicate. I even go as far as to say, I'm not going to report how the open house went on Saturday because on the weekends, we're all busy. I'm going to report back. If there's anything that's pressing, you'll hear about it. But just for general feedback, let me lump it into the weekly sellers report. It buys you time. It buys them time. Their minds can go knowing that Darren's going to bring me up to speed when it matters. And if an offer's coming in, well, then that's, of course, the best indication of how it went. Okay. The second thing I want you to think about is setting the stage early. Setting the stage early. And what that means is there are actually 3 buyer types out there. Did you know this? There's 3 buyer types. One of them is the aspirational buyer, right? The other is a market ready buyer. And then the third is a deal hunter, right? So I want you to explain ahead of time, these are the people we're going to deal with. Market ready would be, the people that are willing to pay price, right? They're coming in, they're going to pay fair value. The deal hunters are the ones that are going to give you those shitty low balls, and they're going to come, and it's not my fault, and it's not the other realtor's fault, but they're out there and just expect to get it. So then you preemptively prepare them for that. The aspirational buyers is these guys are emotionally driven once in a while because your house is so great, because we price so well that we might get this aspirational buyer coming out of the place that I need it now. I'm all cash. I'm ready to go. So you want to explain that there's going to be a variety of these. And of course, all we would want is aspirational buyers paying us the best price in the quickest amount of time. But in reality, that's not the true percentages of the marketplace. Okay, so give them that, setting the stage. The second way to set the stage is also probably maybe before you've even signed the listing contract, but it's talking about the 3 price strategies. And I haven't brought this up yet, and this will go deeper potentially on another podcast. But there's 3 ways to price. We either can event price, we can have market or fair market value, right? Market value. Or there's, of course, hopeful or aspirational again. When we're pricing, we want to bring up that there's 3 places for which we could choose to price your home, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, right? Market value, which is kind of like if we lined up 10 agents behind me, they're all going to come with a range and they're going to play it safe and they're going to likely go with market value. There's aspirational prices, which is we all know sometimes we believe our house is worth X and we want X dollars, but is X in reality, right? That's higher than market value. And I just want to test and tease the market. Now, sometimes your home is the best thing by far, and it warrants, and the market dynamics point to say we can try for more. And you might price a little bit aspirationally, okay? But event pricing tends to be the place that drives the best overall final impact all the time. And this is, let's create your price like an event. We all want to go to events. We all want to feel like we're getting something great, and events drive interest, right? So events are slightly undercutting the market value within reason to drive the utmost interest into your property. So when we're trying to pull together the best client experience throughout the listing, you also want to walk them through these things. And again, this alone will differentiate you versus the other agent who only comes in talking about market value, right? Because they don't have the balls to say that there's actually 3 different places we can play. And it's the strategy and my contacts and knowing the market that will actually do this for you. So the goal here is to manage the emotional curve. Sellers will often follow a trajectory. They will start off excited, big smiles, right? They will get to the middle, like a yellow, confused because things aren't going perfect. And then they will roll to doubtful, where they've got sad face. And this doubtful, right? Our job is to manage this. And the more we can share these elements at the beginning to kind of set the stage, right? These strategy models, the set of strategies around the buyer types, the better they're going to feel and less chance they're going to go from here to here to here, right? My kids love Disney. It's literally the only thing Bentley talks about is Disney, Disney, Disney. He's literally going to be a Disney Imagineer engineer. I guarantee it. Think how Disney manages the waiting lines. We've all been to their favorite rides. They are long. But what do? They've gone all in to, when they know people are waiting, to use characters, right? To put music, to create progress boards, to add in games throughout the thing, to put in incredible design that we can't help but showcase and stare at because of how much detail they put in, right? We need to do the same. We don't just let clients sit in silence waiting. We need to keep them engaged while they're waiting for the sale. And the more educated they are, the better. All right, you guys. What might change if your harvest was done with some of these things we talked about today. Picture this: you finish a deal, and before closing it, your client has already texted you 2 friends. You have to use my agent, right? They're on it, and you get these inbound inquiries. You don't have to ask for referrals because they show up earned throughout that experience that you create, right? What if every transaction in the harvest, before you even realize the result they hired you for, multiplied? Right? That's when harvest is right. It's that raving fans. That's what harvest is designed to do, but it has to be done intentionally or else it will never happen for us, right? So it's not just about the results, it's about how we deliver them through to the result, which may or may not be as good as they had hoped for. And that is more than any ad or post or video. That's what builds a career silently under the table, and you're wondering, where did this all come from, right? So final thought, harvest isn't rest. It's not just the minutiae, friends. It's a rhythm here. It's where leadership and empathy and your execution just all collide together to make this amazing thing. Remember, you're playing Realtor finally, but don't just get stuck in the minutiae. And it's where you show up as the pro that you've always wanted to be, and the pro that you nurtured them through and seeded way back in the day, that now is there to go and materialize it. So if you want to jump in and dive deeper into the harvest, join us in Rome. Reeducation.school is where you come to get access to the live webinars. It's totally free. I don't pitch you anything. And the more people that join, the more we can learn from. So once again, thank you again for being on phase 3 now of this series around the agent cycle of life's deep dive. Hope you've enjoyed it. Share it to a friend, drop us a review, and we'll see you again next week.